On today's episode, Dolph Lundgren is a badass bodyguard, and when he's on the case, there's not a criminal alive that can go toe-to-toe with... Oh, wait, never mind, he's wearing a white hat. You're probably going to want to get someone else for this one. That's going to be an issue. We watch secret John Woo movie Blackjack as TV pilot turned movie month begins, today on Nothing Movies.
Should be more mindful of trying not to interrupt each other because we're just using off the one.
Oh
backup.
yeah. Oh sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sure we'll remember. Yeah. I'm sure I'll remember.
We've been doing this 5 years now.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna stop interrupting people right now.
This will be the episode. This will be the one where
we just interrupted me and I just interrupted you.
That's how it.
This is our dynamic.
This is how our show sounds, man. Yeah. This is the sound that people have gotten used to. All right.
Well,
welcome back. However you wish to self-identify. I'll do that one more time. Who's interrupting me now?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to Nothing Movies, where we ask the question, the fuck is this? It's the podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that they've made, and decide whether or not they've got a certain something, or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lesgard.
And I'm Jameson Rafter.
And it's the beginning of a new theme month for us here, and yes, I said month.
Even though we put out maybe 2 episodes a month.
I swear to God, we've already...
No.
Gone over this on an episode.
No, you sandbagged me on this. You're like, oh, by the way, I think we should go with months. And we're recording, and there was a guest there, so I couldn't protest. We never actually had a discussion on this.
But were we not recording while I was doing that?
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, because I was like, okay, I'm getting what you're saying, but I disagree with.
Well, what should we call them?
A series, a trilogy? I don't know.
A series?
Yeah, why not?
Well, it's a series. It's a new series. It's the start of a new series
events.
that we're beginning on the podcast that we're releasing. We're within a month. Mm-hmm. It will be released within a month.
God willing.
Some of it will be released in the other month.
That's right.
But it still will be released within this month. It's the month that you choose. Whatever month you're listening to
That's the month you're listening to
That's the month of the theme. And the theme is... TV pilots turn movies.
That's right.
Which was
we got there.
Which was a brainchild of Mr. Jameson Rafter.
It was, yeah.
What was your drive to want to talk about this topic in particular?
There were 3 points to this. One, just being on a simplicity level. Most of these pilots are just over an hour or so. And as a guy who doesn't like when our episodes run long, I figured, okay, well, this is a good way to get some truncated stuff out there.
Right.
That was before I found out the movie we watched today was
almost 2 hours. I was very surprised at the length of today's movie.
Jesus Christ, how long is this garbage?
For a TV movie, this was this was on the longer side. I'll tell you that much.
The second point was we've had a pretty good track record with TV pilot movies or so that we've had with Tag Team and with the 2 Shadow Warriors movies. Or no, at least the first one was meant to be sort of
the first one was a pilot. The second one was just, let's do another one of these.
Yeah.
We know they're
formula.
not busy.
That's actually kind of fascinating considering that it started as a pilot and then Hulk Hogan went and did Thunder in Paradise, which is essentially, I want to say, the same theme.
Yeah, and that went to series.
And then they were like, well, everyone's got Thunder in Paradise fever. Let's revive the Shadow Warriors.
Let's go back to the first pilot that didn't take and do another one.
Do it
of
again.
Those. And if I'm remembering correctly, Thunder in Paradise and Shadow Warriors, they all had the same director. So I imagine it was just like...
Oh, you want that steady hand to carry through the entire series.
It was just 5 years where that guy was in the Hulk Hogan business. Yeah. It's just like, this is how I'm making my cash. What's your third point?
My third point was, I think there's bound to be some fascinating stories as to why things weren't picked up, whether it was just bad ratings, maybe how they came together was somewhat insane. Who thought having this idea cobbled together was pretty good? I mean, for this movie, as an example, Blackjack starring Dolph Lundgren was directed by John Woo. That's kind of interesting.
Which is kind of the most interesting thing about it. I'll tell you what, speaking on what you just said, I went to the Google machine, I went to the internet to try and find any information about the production of 1998's Blackjack. And yeah, I largely can't find a thing. There's basically there's basically no real information on
no juicy gossip
how John Woo ended up directing this TV pilot.
He didn't pitch it or anything?
Nope, none whatsoever. This was him for hire, and it should be noted this was also the year after Face Off.
Jesus.
Probably his most popular and well-loved movies for Western audiences. We'll talk about John Woo a little bit. We'll talk about the man's career. The only insight that I can bring to why John Woo decided to say yes to this TV pilot turned movie is that roughly at the same time, this film was shot in Toronto. This is very much a Canadian production.
Yep.
At the same time, 1996, John Woo remade one of his Hong Kong movies, Once a Thief, as a Canadian TV movie, which later got picked up for a full series. They got picked up for like 16 episodes.
Really?
So from 1996 to 1998, John Woo was in Toronto.
He had Canadian fever.
He did.
He had beaver fever.
He absolutely had, and that's what he is very. He's quoted in interviews as saying it.
Yeah.
I won't do the accent because that's a bad call for me. But yes,
what is that? Is that my layup to go ahead and just give it a shot?
There's clips on the internet of John Woo saying, "I have beaver fever." That's absolutely true, and we will let you, the audience, look for those. And if you can't find it, keep digging. They're out there.
Well, all right. I mean, it's good. It's good to get some Canadian content out there and like put Canadian production companies to work and Canadian talent to work.
Canadian actor. Oh yeah,
with a huge Hollywood blockbuster director coming to Canada for that. Yeah, that's good for the economy. That's good for the film industry here.
I mean, John Woo's career was in like a really interesting place at this point in time, and we'll get into it briefly. But before we do that, let's talk about the man himself, because this is a podcast where we talk about actors' filmographies, and there's an actor who I feel like has almost been the subject of this podcast a handful of times. There have been a couple of times where we almost did a Dolph Lundgren movie, and then we veered to a different choice at the last minute. I know at one point in time we considered doing a movie called The Minion.
Oh, yeah.
Which was some sort of like supernatural type dealy-doo.
I think so.
We almost did a shark movie with Dolph Lundgren before we decided to do Dark Tide instead.
Yeah, a horrible choice.
I mean, I haven't seen Dolph Lundgren's shark movie, so that will be up for debate.
Usually it comes up to a point where like, well, we can always fall back to Dolph Lundgren in a pinch.
Absolutely.
But when's the next? When is the next time we'll be able to talk about Halle Berry, for example, on this show? So it was like, well, we'll always have Dolph Lundgren waiting in the wings as sort of the don't a bunch of talk shows always have like a guest that's like a comedian that's living in the neighborhood and doesn't doing anything that day? So it's like, hey, so and so canceled on us. You do anything? You got some funny stories?
Sure.
Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald. He was the guy you could call up. He was never doing anything.
Yeah, I'll be on your show. Yeah,
Dolph Lundgren.
I'll tell the math joke. Yeah,
Dolph Lundgren is our Norm Macdonald. That is true, yes. But Dolph, we've of course covered one of his movies before, the cinematic classic Pops Alone. We will stand that out, and this is, I don't know what that means. God, sometimes I swear I have like the same degenerative disease that Jimmy Fallon has, where like I can't let silence happen at all. I have to like fill the void with like just say a sentence right now.
Well, I've noticed this of you guys.
Yeah, you noticed this is going on here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have the thing where I can't. I'm saying utter garbage and gibberish, but it fucking, I don't know, it fills the air. It fills the air. And that's
even when there's no air to be filled, you decide to interject.
That's the most.
We've had this discussion before, and I'm not bragging on you, man. It's just an observation I picked up these 5 or so years that we've been doing this.
That's fine. I brought it up myself.
Yeah. And then you said, hey, give me an example of dead silence or whatever.
Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah.
He was born in 1957 in Spånga, Sweden. He was the third of 4 kids. Dolph Lundgren claims that his father was physically abusive during his childhood and during tirades would call Dolph a loser, which he says motivated him to be ambitious in life and why he began training in boxing and karate. He was, quote, the runt of a child. But he had aspirations to become the drummer for a rock band, which he eventually realized when he directed a made-for-streaming movie Command Performance, in which he plays the drummer of a metal band that has to take on terrorists.
why aren't we watching this?
That's an excellent question. Hey, like you said, Jameson, we can always go back to Dolph.
We can always go back to Dolph.
There's a wealth of shit that doesn't exist for this guy.
He's the gold standard.
As we will just about to spotlight here. When he was 7, he took judo and goju ryu, and at 10, he took up karate and weightlifting. He graduated high school with straight A's and spent time in the States on scholarships studying chemical engineering, which I feel has become like a little trivia thing about Dolph Lundgren that is like fairly well known. Did you know that about him? That he?
I think you might have brought that up on another episode. But it is one of those like celebrity curio things where it's like top 10 celebrities you didn't know were secretly geniuses.
Absolutely.
It's him, it's Sidney Crawford, I believe, and someone else. Yeah, they all have like doctorates in something. Something really impressive.
He's actually started to, obviously he has so many movies, so I don't know how often he references this, but I know they've begun referencing that as part of like the Dolph lore in some of the movies that he's in. Most notably, I remember there's a moment in Expendables 2 where they're all trapped in a cave and he gets them out through like mixing chemicals together, and he has like a whole
Walter White's their way out.
He has like a whole like 5-minute thing where he's talking about the different properties of chemicals and stuff, and like Randy Couture is in the corner like going like exactly, waiting to talk about his cauliflower ear. He graduated from Stockholm Royal Institute of Technology in 1980 with a degree in chemical engineering. In 1982, he graduated with a master's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Sydney. While he was in Australia, he competed and won a full contact karate tournament and began bouncing work to pay for school. So let's just take stock of everything that I just said here. Before he even has a movie career, he's already the coolest fucking person on the planet.
He's fascinating.
He's a tall, muscular karate scientist who moonlights as a bouncer.
Who can stop this man? It's a good thing he's like not a supervillain at this rate.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he could if he wanted to be.
He wanted to, yeah. He's one bad day away from.
He clearly applied himself to follow his drive in life and his passions in life, and if that passion happened to be supervillainy,
we'd be doomed.
He'd be holding the world under his thumb right now. Okay, yeah, so yeah, all of that stuff happened to him. I mean, that's gotta be it, right? That's gotta like peter off. Like the next thing I'm about to say can't possibly be like even cooler than all those things I just mentioned here.
What's coming up?
Let me just take a look here. After all of that, he starts dating Grace Jones.
Oh.
As Wikipedia states, became her bouncer and then later her lover.
That's indeed a plot of a daytime movie for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, he got awarded a scholarship to MIT in 1983, but instead of going to MIT, he moves with Grace Jones to New York. He dabbled in modeling for a bit, and he continued bouncing at the Manhattan nightclub The Limelight, where his coworker was Chaz Palminteri, which I believe I mentioned on our Noel episode when we were talking about the director of that film. Yes. So just imagining those two guys
the door
saying, no, we got too many
people down.
We got too many of these already.
You're in.
Yeah, during this entire time, he's like secretly a genius and could like blow up the building if he wanted to. But during this time, he began studying acting during the day, and at night, Grace Jones would take him to party with people like Imam and Andy Warhol and all of the cool people in New York in the 80s and everything. So he was living the high life. He was just living like a very cool, hyper successful life.
Everything he sets his mind to, he just accomplishes.
Yeah.
Wow, good for him.
He took these acting classes, and then he eventually did go to MIT for 2 weeks before deciding to leave and make it as an actor. And the rest, as they say, is history. But it's not as they say, because we haven't even gotten into his filmography yet. His first movie, he has one of the most insane first 3 movies of any actor's career.
Okay.
Kind of like Carl Weathers in a sense. I mean, of course, we should also...
Isn't that sort of like all veers towards Rocky at one point?
Yeah,
okay.
And Rocky very early on.
Okay.
Because, of course, for those listening to these episodes chronologically, this will be the second episode we've done in a row where we've covered the career of one of Rocky's rivals. I might have considered doing an episode on Mr. T, but his filmography is pretty spotty, shall we say. Shall we say there are plenty of movies that Mr. T is in where he plays the role of
Mr. T.
Mr. T. So maybe, I don't know, we'll bookmark that for a future episode.
Gotcha.
We don't need to squeeze it in now. His first movie was 1985's A View to a Kill. The final Roger Moore James Bond film in which Grace Jones plays the
femme fatale,
the minor villain of
Mayday.
Yes. So of course Grace Jones was the one that recommended complimented him on that. He's really a blink and you'll miss him type role for Dolph. He's just playing like a minor KGB agent. I don't believe he has any lines.
Okay.
But he is in the background of a couple of shots, so that's his first time on
must
camera.
I must have totally blanked on that because I recently sat down and watched all the Bond movies, and
If you're not looking at the goons in the background, you wouldn't have noticed him, which is odd because it's Dolph Lundgren, so you would have thought you would have noticed him the second he came on screen.
He absolutely would have stood out, but yeah, it just doesn't ring a bell. I'm sure I saw him.
Well, so the movie he makes immediately after that, of course, is Rocky IV.
Right.
It's his second movie, and he obviously had to build up his body to be able to play Ivan Drago, the Soviet Frankenstein. So it's possible that in the James Bond movie he was like a regular sized human.
Okay.
Even though he was like
6'7"
an
or
absurdly tall man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but he was looking as he was filming View to a Kill, he found out that Sylvester Stallone wanted someone to play the Soviet boxer for Rocky IV, so he sent in a bunch of tapes of him doing boxing and everything. He initially was rejected for being too tall. But after they saw a bunch of people, they realized, it's
gotta be this guy.
No one else could play this role other than him. Look at this guy. Look at this fucking guy over here.
Also, opposite Sylvester Stallone, like, everyone's fucking too tall.
Yeah, precisely, yes.
Yeah. I think I'm taller than Stallone.
I certainly now.
Yeah.
He's an old man. He's shrunk. He got a little shrinky. During the filming of Rocky IV, he hit Stallone so hard, he was hospitalized for 9 days.
Yep, that's what gets you the fucking part, or, jeopardizes your career.
I mean, it jeopardizes your career. He might have killed the star and director of the movie. That's what's crazy to think about those Rocky movies that Stallone directed. Directing a movie while you're the main character is already the hardest thing on the world. On top of that, someone's beating the shit out of you.
You're getting punched in the face. All right, let's check the dailies.
Let's take it again. He's just having brain damage. Wow, that's wild. But
you tend to need to see when you're a director and think.
And one of your eyes is
communicate.
Swollen shut. I know a lot of that was makeup, but I know they did like actually fight each other in the ring. You know, there's only so much you can cheat boxing. At a certain point, you have to have actors punch each other in the face. There's no real way to cheat that in a movie. You do have to do that, and I know they're not going like full force or anything, but I don't know. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't know how boxing movies work. I don't know. Join us, won't you? As we peel
the lid on boxing.
Peel the lid back on. Yeah,
100 years of boxing movies.
Dolph said, he's quoted as saying, "It took me years not to be weirded out by the fact that at the beginning of one evening, I walked into a movie theater as Grace Jones' boyfriend, and I walked out of that theater as Dolph Lundgren, action superstar. And it took me like several years to get over just how much of a culture shock that was.
I can imagine.
I have to imagine like the imposter syndrome that he must have
felt
at the time.
Well, considering he spent most of his life in academia, that's a total shift, absolutely. And because he looks the way that he does, he's going to be getting action hero, tough guy roles. When I imagine, and like, he had like fight training and everything, but that was more of like fitness and getting in
personal health.
Yeah. Otherwise, like he would just be very bookish, I'd imagine.
Or doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
Doing squats while reading Dostoevsky is how I have to imagine it.
That's the Ivan Drago story.
As you say, looking the way he did, his next role in Hollywood, they really couldn't have done anything other than cast him as He-Man in the live-action Masters of the Universe movie, in which he is unfortunately pretty wooden because he hadn't quite figured out like his US-based persona. Yet I will say he seemingly got there a lot quicker than Arnold did. Like obviously we got like two guys from foreign countries. The Swedish accent obviously isn't as like intense as Arnold's Austrian accent is. And honestly, by the time we're getting to Blackjack, he really doesn't have that much of an accent. Like Dolph Lundgren's natural speaking voice is pretty American standard now.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, plays like a U.S. Marshal or former Marshal in that, and it's like, I could totally see this guy as American born.
It's easier to buy Dolph Lundgren in that role than it is to buy Arnold Schwarzenegger being like, yes, I am American average Joe.
Yeah. I am Jack Smith.
Yeah, exactly. Masters of the Universe isn't his fault. There's some other
lay off everybody.
There's some other shit going on there. It's a terrible movie, but it's fun. Frank Langella is having a lot of fun as Skeletor.
He's the highlight of the movie.
He's clearly the highlight of the movie, but it's like these were the roles that were offered to Dolph post Rocky, and it was kind of like the trajectory that he had to take. Okay, so here's the thing thing with the Dolph Lundgren career. The man has a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cover all of them. The majority of them.
Action movies?
Action movies that have gone straight to video slash DVD slash streaming now. And it starts much earlier than you might think. He does have 10 or 11 theatrically released films.
Yeah.
The rest of them just made it to the blockbuster shelves.
Right, but I think that's because around that time of his ascension was the height of the VHS market. So it kind of makes sense that there would be studios just making stuff tailor-made for home video releases.
And action movies kind of play better in that market.
The budgets have to be so insane for big screen action movies that you need a bona fide hit for them to stay above water. And at that point, they had a muscular foreign guy in Arnie to be that weather.
Right.
What do you do with Dolph Lundgren? Where's his market? And it was, Arnie's not going to be on the small screen, so that's where you're going to capitalize.
That's a fantastic point, James, and it's one that I hadn't thought of, but you're absolutely right. It's a perfect. He must have realized this from his bouncer days. Just like the Hollywood producers are the bouncer, and they're looking at Arnold and looking at Dolph, and they're just going all like, we already have one of these. You can go to the other club. That's not as cool as this club, which is rough. But it's a rough industry.
They just send you across the street to a loser club,
basically. So one of the movies he made after Rocky IV that did make it to theaters is 1988's Red Scorpion.
Ooh,
where he plays a KGB agent sent to a fictitious African country to assassinate a rebel leader, but ends up switching sides. It was I feel like it's kind of like the middle point between is this guy going to be the new Arnold?
Yeah.
And then this movie comes out and it doesn't really find an audience, and they're all like, okay, we don't really know where to slot this guy. We'll just keep you in straight-to-video land for a while here. Now, 1989, this is a movie I was aware that he did. I did not realize that this was the first movie he made that went straight to video, because it's obviously based on a Marvel property.
The Punisher.
And nowadays, when you have anything based on a Marvel property, it is given the highest echelon of golden pillars and whatnot. It moves ahead to the cream of cinema. Maybe the shine has come off of it a little bit nowadays. Marvel's kind of descending now, but still, in 1989 there weren't movies based on Marvel Comics properties. It was still considered pretty junky. To do an adaptation of something. And I haven't seen the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, but by all accounts, it's barely an adaptation of the Punisher. He doesn't even wear the skull shirt.
Nuts.
That's the one thing you gotta do.
Now, is that the first Marvel movie, or is it the canon Captain America?
Canon Captain America came out the year after that.
Really?
I think I need to check the old internet ticker. I believe the first movie released based on a Marvel Comics property
feature film,
might have been Howard the Duck.
Oh,
I think that might be the first one that's based on a Marvel comic, but I don't know. I mean, unless you're counting the TV movies they made out of Incredible Hulk. Incredible Hulk had a couple of famous Trial of the Incredible Hulk, but I don't know. Those might have, and I think there were maybe a couple of live action Japanese Spider-Man movies, but again, it's hard to tell. It's kind of hard to, but by all accounts, Marvel movies began with Blade.
Right.
How we view the modern Marvel movies. But there were a few The Punisher that kind of snuck out before those existed. But by all accounts they aren't really part of the larger Marvel canon. But after that, in 1990, he does back-to-back straight-to-video movies where his co-star is Lou Gossett Jr., who is also the co-star of The Punisher. He does a movie called Cover Up. But also in 1991, he does Showdown in Little Tokyo, one of the few films to star Brandon Lee. I feel like that's more of the legacy of that film, in that it's one of the few movies that Brandon Lee was alive for before he tragically passed away for that. You ever seen that?
I saw Laser Mission.
You saw Laser Mission. Well, that's the only one that really matters. 1992, I would say, is kind of, he has Rocky, and he is in more than one Rocky movie now. So obviously Rocky is his big franchise. His second biggest franchise, arguably, starts in 1992 with Universal Soldier.
Oh, right.
A film series I have never seen any of, but I really need to catch up on that because I've heard some good things. I've heard it's a good sleeper little action series. So the first movie, directed by Roland Emmerich, co-starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, someone he would work with over and over again throughout the years. Like they're constantly co-stars in things. And yeah, in Universal Soldier, 2 soldiers I think die in Vietnam, and they're brought back to life, and Dolph is the bad guy, and Jean-Claude is the good guy. Universal Soldier has a really weird trajectory as a franchise because there's 6 movies. So the first one is the theatrically released Jean-Claude Dolph movie. Then there are 2 direct-to-video sequels that don't star Jean-Claude or Dolph, but do star Gary Busey and Burt Reynolds. So that's interesting.
All right.
Then
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. You gotta fill that void somehow. Then the 4th film, Universal Soldier: The Return, does get released theatrically. No Dolph in that one, but Jean-Claude is back. I believe the villain in that is Michael J. White and Goldberg, or the 2 that he's fighting in that.
All right.
And then in 2009, we get Universal Soldier Regeneration, which goes straight to DVD. Both Jean-Claude and Dolph are back for that one. And the word on that is that secretly, it's supposed to be really fucking good.
That's kind of surprising.
Both that and the 2012 follow-up, Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning, are both supposed to be really quality and like the upper echelon of like movies that got released straight to DVD.
Like better than it has any right to be.
For the 5th movie in the Universal Soldier franchise.
On a straight to streaming thing starring 2 aging action stars.
Apparently they're quite good, because apparently in the 6th one, what they do is they actually make, because Universal Soldier, it's like a franchise about like cloning. Like they die and they bring them back to life.
Aren't they like cybernetically enhanced?
They're like cybernetically enhanced. I believe the hook for the 5th and the 6th movies is that Jean-Claude is now the villain. And it's because like it's like a clone of a clone of a clone or whatever.
Derivative of the original. Okay, yeah. Keeps breaking down.
They keep breaking down. So yeah, now he's become like this crazy thing.
The Bizarro of Jean-Claude Van Damme.
And I think as it goes on, Dolph started off as the lead villain. Now he's become like Jean-Claude is the main villain, and now he's like his number 2.
Okay.
I believe. It sounds interesting. I'm going to put that on my list of things that I got to check out fairly soon.
Well, hopefully you're right. And so when this is released, you don't look like a fool for saying that they're actually really good, you guys.
It's all I've heard of.
Okay.
It's all I've heard.
All right, cool.
In 1993, he's in the film Joshua Tree, where he plays a car thief framed for murder by a crooked cop. That, of course, comes to us from the director of A Sunday Horse.
I love how we keep going back to all our old episodes.
If I find a connection, then you know I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah. You know him best from the works of A Sunday Horse.
A Sunday Horse. 1995 is his last theatrically released movie in like almost a decade. He has a small role in the film Johnny Mnemonic. Starring Keanu Reeves, a very ambitious sort of sci-fi tale. Came out a couple of years before The Matrix, and it's like, this movie's really trying to do what The Matrix was able to do, but unfortunately it was just too early. Didn't quite work out. He plays a minor antagonist in that. I think he plays like a crazy street preacher who turns out to be like an assassin or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So he's running after Keanu. He's trying to get the shit out of his head or whatever's going on in that movie. And then from 1995 to 2008, he is just in a never-ending run of straight-to-DVD action movies where he's on the cover holding a gun.
Yeah.
Usually there are titles where it's like the something or other.
Sure,
A list of titles that include The Shooter, Silent Trigger, The Peacekeeper, The Minion, Sweepers, Bridge of Dragons, Stormcatcher, Jill Rips, The Last Warrior, Agent Red, Hidden Agenda, Detention, Retrograde, The Inquiry, Direct Contact, and then that's not even counting the movies that he also directed. He's directed 8 movies, all of which that he is the star of. So he has like an oeuvre in terms of like being like a filmmaker, which starts with 2004's The Defender, The Mechanic, Diamond Dogs, Missionary Man, Command Performance, Icarus, so on and so forth. Like, just like a never-ending barrage of these things that maybe there's some good shit buried in there. It's hard to tell. You have to watch all of them to find out.
I am dreading looking up the posters of all of these fucking movies for these.
Just put in do what you did for like the top 50 thing and just do like a collage of it.
Just do a collage?
Yeah, just throw it in all at once.
That took time, too.
Well,
did you say one of them was Mercenary Man?
Missionary.
Ah, fuck.
Almost.
damn it!
Well, I think one was Missionary Man and one was Mercenary something or other.
Yeah, well.
Only thing I want to point out about any of these movies, 2004's The Defender also features Jerry Springer as the President of the United States.
Okay.
Maybe that's one for a future episode.
Sure.
2010 is his first movie in theaters in well over a decade. It is, of course, The Expendables.
Yep.
He follows that up with the two sequels to that, 2012's The Expendables 2, 2003's Expendables 3. In between that and 2011, he's in the Uwe Boll straight-to-DVD sequel, In the Name of the King 2.
I know someone who worked on that movie.
I also know someone who worked on that movie.
They got some stories.
Shout out to Heather Dirksen, who plays like the female lead of that movie that I was in a play with once, and I found out that she's in this Uwe Boll sequel starring Dolph Lundgren, and
she didn't want to talk about it.
I kept pressing her. I just all like, what's Dolph like? What's Uwe like? Tell me. You gotta tell me. No. Shout out to her. I haven't seen her in forever. But anyway, 2016, he's in Kindergarten Cop 2.
Yep. Finally.
So finally, the story continues. Yes, literally taking over for Arnold in that case.
Yeah.
It's funny that it took to 2016 for him to like literally follow in Arnold's shoes. He must have really needed the cash. Also in 2016, he films a small role, but ultimately is cut out of the Coen brothers film Hail Caesar.
Oh, really?
Apparently he is credited in the movie.
He probably would have been like the Russian submarine captain.
He is the Russian submarine captain.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I believe he is in that movie in silhouette. But he actually shot like dialogue for that movie, and then they cut him out. I remember knowing that because when that movie came out, I looked on IMDb, I saw he was in the movie, went to the movie knowing Dolph Lundgren's going to be in this for like half a second, and then he never showed up.
I should rewatch that movie. I think I liked it. It's good,
goofy fun.
Yeah.
2018, a huge year for Dolph Lundgren, because not only is he back as Ivan Drago in Creed 2, which, as we talked about on the last episode, he's fantastic in, but he also pops up in Aquaman.
Yeah.
As one of the many kings of the sea.
Of the whatever the fuck's going on.
I don't know,
water.
some portion of the water he's in charge of.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking he's weirdly kind of good in that too. So yeah, he had a good
with
year
his flowing red mane of hair.
Yep.
Yeah.
It looks good on him. 2021, of course, he's in Pups Alone.
Of course,
naturally. How could we forget? 2022, he provides the voice of supervillain Svengeance in Minions: Rise of Gru. 2023, he's in two sequels that really didn't do him any favors: Aquaman 2 and Expendables 4, or as it's written on the poster, Expendables, which nothing exists less than those fucking Expendables movies.
I mean, everyone was so gung-ho for the first one when it was announced, and the trailers looked awesome, and then the movies came out, and it was not what they were expecting. Everyone thought this was going to be, they're all fun, cheesy throwback action movies of the 80s where it's just tough guys and they're using all these squibs and everything, and then it's all this digital blood and all this character drama, and it's like,
such a shitty looking movie.
God damn.
Yeah, and then I feel like everyone collectively was like, well, that was a piece of shit, but like they've set the groundwork, so like the next one will probably...
the next one's going to have like Kurt Russell, and maybe they'll get Harrison Ford, and they'll get Jackie Chan, and whoever else the fuck they missed out on. I've always maintained that Clint Eastwood should have played the president in those movies.
In one of those,
At least one of those.
I think he was offered. I'm pretty sure he was offered the role that ultimately went to Harrison Ford. I mean, he'd have to be sitting down the entire time, man. You give that guy a machine gun, it would blow him away. He'd break like a bundle of twigs. The second one is the best one, but it's still really bad. I mean, that's the one where Van Damme is the bad guy.
Yeah, and they got Arnie in on for most of the action, and Bruce Willis.
And Chuck Norris, so it's like that one has enough stuff in it to keep it from being absolute shit, but it's not very good, and all of them are terrible, and Expendables 4 is by far the worst one.
Yeah.
Because they've lost everyone. They've lost everyone that's like important, and it's all like, who's new on the team this time?
Yeah.
50 Cent, Megan Fox.
I don't care about who's new on the team. I want to see who's old on the team. Only old people should be in those Expendables movies.
And not only that, but it's like the name of your franchise is called The Expendables. You never kill any of these motherfuckers off.
Yeah.
They all fucking survive, and sometimes you do like this bait and switch where you think one of them is dead, but then they're back in the finale. It's like, no, I was undercover. It's like, fuck off, kill one of these guys. They're called The Expendables. The only person they kill over the course of 4 movies is Liam Hemsworth, and look, I get it. I understand the drive to want to murder Liam Hemsworth, but like,
I mean, the only way they leave that series is by just leaving the series.
They can't. They can't. They're
opting
not
not to return.
They're not gonna. Yeah. But that was the thing I thought about, like Expendables 4, where there's all of these characters who aren't in that movie. Like Terry Crews isn't back, Jet Li isn't back. Why not just say they died?
Yeah.
Then they live up to the fucking title of the thing. Have like an in memoriam billboard or something, like their thumbs up or whatever,
and wheel out like wheelbarrows of cash for guys like Jackie Chan to appear in one of those movies.
I don't know. I don't think a wheelbarrow big enough exists to convince Jackie Chan to be in one of those fucking things. He's too busy making 10 Chinese movies that you've never heard of. Well, because we don't live in China. Anyway, you know who does make movies in China occasionally?
Dolph Lundgren.
I was gonna say John Woo.
Oh, okay.
But
I was hoping it was be one of those two guys we're talking about.
I'm sure he's been there. I'm sure he's taken a flight.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about the career of the man who directed this movie and also the movie itself after this charity spot.
Yeah.
So stay tuned because you're not
going to want to miss this one.
You're going to want to hear about Blackjack and what his whole deal is. Spoiler alert, it's stupid.
Well, that's a good thing. Dramatic biodiversity loss and climate change are two of the most urgent global crises that will mark the next several years, and nature conservation is a bold and integral response to both. By 2030, ambitious national and international conservation targets come due. The United Nations has launched the Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, where in 2030, ambitious national and international conservation targets come due. For its part, Canada has adopted pioneering and progressive goals to contribute to these global efforts. One of the organizations at the forefront of these actions is the Nature Conservancy of Canada, the country's largest unifying force for nature, working to deliver large-scale, permanent land conservation. Since 1962, they have helped to protect more than 15 million hectares across the country, fine-tuned over decades of on-the-ground work, and continues to evolve to meet our changing needs. The ways they have helped over the years include actions such as conservation research and project partnerships, ecosystem restoration, indigenous conservation, combating biodiversity loss, and nature-based solutions for climate acceleration, which by connecting the true value of nature with new opportunities for finance has narrowed the corporate and federal gap in nature investment. Nations are pledging net zero carbon economies by 2050, and as the private sector shifts towards net zero and nature-positive commitments, the pool of private capital available for conservation is growing. But it is still an ambitious target facing a lot of pushback from moneyed interests. Despite their successes, Nature Conservancy Canada and organizations like it are always looking for those eager to help. So for today's charity spot, and for the sake of our communities, our country, and our planet, I highly encourage you to please visit natureconservancy.ca and find ways where you can help. It can be through actions such as donations, corporate sponsorships, gifts of stock, employer gift matching, volunteer work, and so much more. Again, that website is natureconservancy.ca.
Okay, Blackjack, directed by John
Woo of all people. We don't normally get like such prestige filmmakers on this show.
of this type of quality here. Yeah, normally it's a guy who directed a bunch of television and one Chuck Norris movie. Yeah, exactly. But no, legendary Taiwanese or Hong Kong.
Oh, you better get this right.
You better
fucking get this one right.
Need to get this right. Sorry about that. But you know, wait, I don't need to give him an introduction. It's fucking John Woo.
The man needs no introduction.
The man needs no introduction. Blackjack.
He directed fucking Face Off.
He's a Hong Kong filmmaker. I don't know why I thought Taiwanese. My apologies, Mr. Wu. But yes, yeah, fucking John Woo. I mean, like, first thing to talk about is obviously he has a long career in Hong Kong filmmaking, like decades before he becomes known to Western audiences. His first movie was 1974's The Young Dragons, which was choreographed by Jackie Chan.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. His early inspiration for wanting to become a filmmaker was watching Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which makes a ton of sense. Have you seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
A long time ago.
Long time ago, but you're familiar with like the poster image and like the final image of the movie?
Yeah, they run out of the hideout and then they just go guns a-blazing against the posse.
They go guns a-blazing. Jameson, how many guns do Butch and Sundance have? They got 2 each.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. And like when you think of that image, John Woo says that inspired him to make movies. That perfectly makes sense.
That tracks.
Because what's in all of his action movies? People firing dual wielding pistols.
Yeah.
From 1975 to 1985, he makes a variety of films in Hong Kong in a variety of genres, including drama and comedy. One movie that I want to spotlight is 1981's Laughing Times, which is literally a Chinese Charlie Chaplin film, in the sense that they hired an actor to dress up like Charlie Chaplin, and the name of the character he plays in the movie is Chinese Charlie Chaplin.
Oh.
And that movie looks wild. 1986 is when he makes his classic film A Better Tomorrow. This begins like a run of film. These are like the films that got him the Hollywood career.
Yeah.
They're known as the heroic bloodshed genre of films.
Okay.
Pretty badass. Almost all of these movies star Chow Yun-fat. It's A Better Tomorrow, A Better Tomorrow 2, The Killer, Hard Boiled, and then from those he gets his first American feature, 1993's Hard Target, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. Then he gets 1996's Broken Arrow, which isn't very good, and it's not really like an action movie. It's like John Travolta's the bad guy. He stole a missile, and Christian Slater is after him, and it's not a lot of like kung fu in that one.
No,
but it's a standard actioner, and it opens the door for him working with Travolta, which then of course leads to Face Off, his most beloved film, ridiculous movie. I read that he got offered that movie, turned it down a couple of times until he was allowed to rewrite the script. The main thing that he took out was that it was supposed to be a science fiction movie. And his move was, let's make it a contemporary movie, which I would argue is part of what makes Face Off so fucking successful. It's that it's this absurd fucking surgery that could never fucking happen in a million years, and all of this weird tech, like the future prison with like
the magnetic
boots and everything. But it seemingly takes place in just like a regular everyday world,
modern day San Francisco.
And I would argue that's what makes it such a fun movie.
Well, that, and it's Nicolas Cage as John Travolta. And there'll be a scene where he has to like pass himself off as Nicolas Cage, but through the interpretation of John Travolta trying to play off Nicolas Cage.
Some of the best acting that they've ever done.
Each of them, yeah. Did you know that the reason that there's a slash in the title for Face Off is because he didn't want audiences to confuse this movie for a hockey movie?
I do know that.
And it's like, no, people need to know exactly what the fuck this movie's about. There can be absolutely zero misunderstanding.
And that slash cleared everything up. Absolutely.
Oh, it's a hockey movie? Fuck no, it's not.
And then, of course, going off the success of that in 2000, he gets Mission Impossible 2, which should be a tremendous feather in his cap, but unfortunately is pretty widely remembered as the worst Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah, I think the original idea was that they wanted to get very distinct directors to do every one of the installments.
Yeah.
You know, like eventually, like bad example, but like Tarantino would have done 3, you know?
Yeah.
Scorsese would have done, you know, like, but like established director with a recognizable style, but because 2 was so universally derided, they were like, no, we gotta actually rethink this.
And then they got J.J. Abrams to direct the third one, and then he stays on as a producer for like the next couple of ones, and that adds this familiarity to it. And then in the fifth one, Cruise meets Christopher McQuarrie, and he's just all like, oh, you're just gonna direct all my movies from now on. I'm just not gonna work with anyone else from now on.
Yeah.
And that's the state that we're currently in right now.
I think for the better.
For the better. Those are good movies. Yeah, those are great. And then the 2 other movies he makes in the English language are 2002's Wind Talkers, back with Nicolas Cage, which is like a fairly serious war movie, I remember, that didn't go over terribly well. And then 2003's Paycheck,
which I saw in theaters.
Do you remember anything about it?
Being a dumb kid that didn't go to the movies that often, I remember thinking it was okay.
Yeah.
It was no face-off.
And then he goes back to Hong Kong, and that's where he stayed until just recently. I mean, he's made a handful of really long, epic Hong Kong movies that are released in 2 parts, but he recently came back to North American cinemas last year with 2023's Silent Night, which was a very ambitious movie that has no dialogue in it, and is about a man whose son is killed in a drive-by shooting, and he gets shot in the neck, and he loses the ability to speak, and he loses his vocal cords. So it's kind of a silent movie, not quite a silent movie. I watched this as a double feature yesterday with Blackjack. Hot take. Blackjack, a better movie than Silent Night. Silent Night sucks. Holy shit, what a terrible movie. And obviously I have not watched all of John Woo's 40-plus career, but
Bit of a miss.
I'd make a wager it's maybe one of the worst movies he's directed, because what a grim, unpleasant, unfun movie that was. And the one thing you could say about Blackjack, it's pretty fun.
It's pretty fun.
It's got some good shit in it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about one of his better movies in Blackjack.
Right.
Yeah.
First thing that I want to talk about is that it gives me the opportunity to finally crack open this DVD that I've had for a while here.
Yeah.
And what a purchase.
Yeah.
What a purchase I made, Jameson.
You didn't even know, like, you had this forever now. You said you never watched it.
I never watched it.
You've been sitting on gold.
Well, okay. So this is a classic 4 movies on one disc type cheapy thing that you pick up a shelf. It's just like
we all know what a 4-pack DVD is.
Yeah, a collection of things. It is, to be more specific, it is the Miramax High Octane Action Series of films.
Right.
Now, I originally bought this because one of the movies I thought would make for a good episode, it wasn't Blackjack. And it still would make for a good episode. I got it because I thought it would make for a good fuck is this episode. It will still make perfectly fine Nothing Movies episode if we ever want to cover Charlie Sheen, or indeed his father, Martin Sheen. Film called No Code of Conduct. And I bought it because it is written and directed by Bret Michaels. So that sounded interesting. So top left quadrant of this DVD, No Code of Conduct. Top right quadrant of this DVD, Dolph Lundgren, Blackjack. Bottom left quadrant of this DVD, Sean Bean in Bravo 2-0. And then the fourth quadrant, I saved the best for last, High Octane Action, Kevin Spacey, an ordinary decent criminal, which from what I can maintain from
That's
the
an
internet,
unfortunate title.
From the internet, there's nothing ordinary or decent about him. From what I can tell, this is just a biopic about a Dublin gangster. I don't think there's no action involved in it whatsoever, but
I'm sure there's like a bank explosion or a car chase or a gunfight.
Well, I'll give it a spin and I'll let you know. But I was finally able to crack this open. Did you watch this on YouTube? Or
yeah, I watched it on YouTube.
Were there well, I guess it's YouTube, so you didn't have subtitles.
No, there's closed captioning.
There's closed captioning?
There's a note that I want to make about the closed captioning.
Well, then you probably watched the superior version of this, because let me tell you, the transfer on this DVD, quite poor. Also, no subtitles. Really glad I paid $10 for this. Well, it'll work it when we do our Kevin Spacey miniseries.
All right.
Which will be 10 films.
All right, now it's time to talk about Blackjack.
What do you want to say? Blackjack, a movie about a man whose name is Jack, and he is afraid of the color white. And to make that title even more apt, he's also really into playing cards. He's got like a whole motif. He's really into it.
That's right.
He likes close-up magic is what he does. Yeah, he's really into playing cards, and he's afraid of the color white, and no one right in the movie ever stopped to think for a second that playing cards are traditionally white.
Or the fact that he has a deck of cards that are like featureless. They just are, you turn it over and it's just a blank white square.
Yeah, what was the deal with that?
I don't know.
That would trigger him even more.
All right,
what was the purpose of that?
All right, let's set this up. So the movie opens at a casino, which is appropriate considering it's called Blackjack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the casino owner is in hot water with a bunch of Russian gangsters, and he hires his old friend Jack Devlin, played by Dolph Lundgren, to not necessarily take out the Russian gangsters, but to protect his little daughter, because the evil Russian mobsters have they have her in her sights as collateral or something.
Yeah, they've shown up and they've threatened this casino guy. They did the classic thing where it's like pictures of the little girl playing in her front yard.
Be ashamed if something unfortunate would happen to your little girl.
Almost certain that's a direct line of dialogue
like
from
that,
the movie. Yeah, they didn't even write that. And so he calls in Jack Devlin. And Jack Devlin walks into the casino, and a bunch of goons. A bunch of goons who don't own the casino, because his buddy owns the casino, so I was really confused as to what these goons were trying to stop him from doing. It's like a public building. He can go wherever he wants.
They're just hassling him.
I know they're hassling him, but it's like I think
the reason they did it is so that he could disarm them in the best possible way.
In the coolest fucking way possible.
Pulls out a deck of cards and he throws them like goddamn Gambit, and they like slice the guy's thighs.
This movie might be the closest we're ever going to get to a live action Gambit movie, because he does like the fucking like razor. Yeah, he cuts the guy's tie in half, and the guy has like this look on his face, and then like as the elevator doors are closing, he like tosses his razor cards out. I'm like, you don't want to hang on to those?
Yeah.
So I got a lot of
I got
them.
52 of these.
I got like a whole closet that's just filled with these things. You gotta buy in bulk.
Yeah.
Is the thing. So Jack Devlin shows up and he takes Casey, the little daughter, back to her house because I guess he's essentially her bodyguard now.
Yep.
That's what her parents have hired him to do. So yeah, he takes her back to her mansion, and much like last episode, Dangerous Passions, this movie opens with like a siege on like a mansion.
Yeah, that's a good point. But what a fucking siege! I mean, Cassie's having a glass of orange juice or whatever.
Milk.
Yeah, she has milk.
It's that's a plot point.
All right.
Normally I wouldn't correct you. That's
Yeah.
weirdly a plot point.
So she's having juice when all of a sudden all hell breaks loose and like a bunch of goons break into the house.
Endless goons.
Endless
Where are all
goons.
these goons coming? It's like fucking Gauntlet Legends. There's
Yeah.
a fucking
A horde.
Yeah, a horde. What is it? Like little tents or whatever that all the goons are coming out of.
Bunch of goons show up there, and Dolph Lundgren wrecks fucking shop because like all the ballistic effects that you would hope to see in a John Woo action movie show up in this. He annihilates that second floor.
There are two distinct moments when you're watching this fairly bland but occasionally entertaining TV movie where it becomes abundantly clear that John Woo directed this. And
yeah.
this opening is certainly one of this.
I love the part where he shoots one guy on the top floor.
Yes.
And he falls over
Yes.
the railing, but Dolph Lundgren decides, no, that's not enough. So he kicks over a table for the guy to crash through instead of hitting the floor.
So deeply unnecessary. Well, he had to break that guy's fall, Jameson.
A guy he killed, yeah.
He would have hurt himself. So he put that glass table underneath him. What a great moment. I love that.
Oh, yeah. But then one of the goons has a flash grenade, and this blinding flash that apparently Dolph Lundgren looks directly at blinds him temporarily. And
Right.
this is what triggers his phobia of the color white.
Right. Now, it took me going over the synopsis on Wikipedia again to make me realize that like this is the moment where he like gets his phobia. I thought he like always had this phobia because we learned that it's like tied to some childhood trauma when he couldn't like rescue his father from gangsters or whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought he always had like this phobia, this color phobia or whatever.
No,
but apparently this is the moment where it happens, where he gets it, and it comes from he's blind.
It was triggered by like a traumatic event, and like here's a high stress environment, and I guess it was always in his subconscious. This is what awakens it. It's like the fucking gamma bomb for the Incredible Hulk.
And it's like, that makes sense. If I were in that situation, I would also feel deeply traumatized if I were in that exact situation that he's currently in right now. But it's like, he's Jack Devlin. He's like badass motherfucker, and he's like killing these guys without breaking a sweat. Is it factual to say that all of these people firing at him and he's blinded, that he's traumatized by that? He seems like a pretty cool customer.
Good under fire.
But
and,
I guess
doesn't take anybody's shit. But
the shock of being blinded throws him off,
awoken something,
and sets him down this path that would have been explored Thursdays at 8 on USA Network if we ever would have. We'll get to that, but so
he's temporarily blinded, and so the little girl hops on his shoulders and like directs him.
Well, first he talks through how she's able to escape from the clutches of one of the goons, because one of the goons has her held captive. He has a gun to her head.
Yeah.
She also still happens to be carrying her
carton of milk.
Her cute little carton of milk that was very production designed. That doesn't that's
that
not
is
like
no name brand.
That is no
milk.
name brand milk. That was a very over designed carton. Like I looked at it first, I'm all like, is there like a missing kid on it? Like it's like but yeah. He does it in the stupidest way, where this is before he's been blinded. He's pointing the gun at the goon. The goon has the gun pointed at the girl, and he looks at Casey and he says, "Casey, don't worry, you got milk."
And she takes it as a cue to, I get you.
I get you exactly what you mean.
Pours the milk onto the sleeve of the goon, which he does not react to, and uses that as lubrication to slip through his grip.
She slips through. Milk, famously slippery. Yes. But yeah, she's able to get away. Dolph shoots the goon. Then he becomes blinded. Then it turns into like a Master Blaster situation.
Yeah. bad guy at 3 o'clock, roundhouse kick right now. It was lovely.
I mean, it's also mentioned earlier that this little girl has like a 180 IQ or something, because she's like she's like counting cards, she's like watching like the people play blackjack, and she's like, he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, so this little girl who's like precocious as all fuck and has like the massive IQ that all kids in these
movie kids
have. Yeah, she grew up around the casino and I guess in all these bar rooms because she knows how to count cards. She knows all the rules of like every card game in the world. And in one scene she's like telling some pretty bawdy jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You hear the one about the 2 priests and the Polak or whatever? Like not exactly that, but
she's busy. Their parents are busy running the casino. She's just hanging out with the showgirls or whatever. She learned how to smoke when she was like 7 years old.
Yeah.
Takes the filters off, throws them away. Get him in. But she jumps up on...
Here's how you get stains out of your dress using scotch. Or
oh my god. So she jumps up on Dolph Lundgren's shoulders. She's like pulling on his hair like Ratatouille. And just like endless goon after endless goon keeps showing up out of nowhere, and he's able to shoot them despite the fact that he's completely blind.
Well, temporarily blind.
Blind.
They do manage to get outside, and he throws her onto a trampoline. She bounces in the pool. He jumps on the trampoline, and then does like the whole 360, dual wielding of the guys.
With a massive explosion behind him, he jumps onto the trampoline, jumps back up, holding the double pistols that are required in all John Woo movies. I'm surprised there weren't any pigeons in the background.
I know, right? There was a scene that was a little reminiscent of that cliche, but I'll get to it. But like, couldn't ask for a better opening to this movie. No. This was amazing.
It's fucking great. And it's funny how basically none of what happens in this opening matters to the story.
No, really.
We've just like spent like a decent amount of time talking about what happens in this movie. We technically haven't mentioned the plot of this movie yet. And that just goes to show like the obvious like
the priorities.
Well, like the big pacing issues that this movie has, because it obviously is meant to be a pilot to a TV movie, very specifically a term that I was aware of but didn't know what it actually meant. This was a backdoor pilot. Which means that it was shot as a TV movie, and the idea was that
it would eventually go to series.
This will hold up on its own. If it never goes to series, this will hold up on its own as a movie. I don't know if that actually works. I don't know if that's actually true.
Yeah.
This very much does feel like a failed TV pilot movie, just in the way that
it sets up characters and like future developments of them, and it leaves a few things sort of lingering threads. Like we'll address this another
time.
Yeah.
Case in point, this little girl we kept talking about, Casey, not really important to the story, but is she a character? Most definitely.
Would she factor into every episode for a 22 episode series?
That's the idea.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's like and we're getting ahead of ourselves, but there's like 4 characters in this movie that very clearly are meant to be like the recurring cast of this.
Yeah.
But we gotta get off this train. So the parents come home. And
thank you, Jack. You saved our little girl.
Jack was shot in the leg, but he's fine. He's on a stretcher. He says, I can't remember what he says. He says something, and then the screen freezes.
Yeah, what was with that?
And then I'm like, is this the end of the movie? This is a very short pilot.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't expect it to be 15 minutes. My God.
I wouldn't make you watch a 15-minute
It's just about
thing.
it's a very weird transition that it's like, it like freezes and then fades to black. And then the actual movie starts.
Yeah.
This was just a little amuse-bouche to get you satiated for the next...
So we meet Jack's doctor friend, soon to be, the love interest in like...
Clearly, his psychiatrist, yes.
She breaks down like, oh yeah, your phobia of the color white.
It's just called leukophobia.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. It absolutely is a real thing, yeah.
It's unfortunate that it's to the color white, which when I've heard...
Everywhere. It's everywhere.
Well, I was looking around my apartment. How much white shit do I have here?
It's basic.
I know, right? It's everywhere.
They also, and I know this is like a very... dumb sticking point, but they also continually say the color white.
The color white, yeah.
White is not a color, it's the absence of color. But
also, as a guy who went to art school, it's technically a shade.
There we go. Well, but there we go. But he's talking with this Dr. Rachel Stein. Like the second line out of this character's mouth is she pulls out a big ass cigar and she asks for a light. And I'm just all like, all right, casually smoking a big ass stogie in the middle of a psych psych evaluation. All right, sure.
It was the 90s, man.
It was the mid 90s. It was the late 90s.
It was the
actually.
late 90s.
Yeah,
so smoke them while you got them. Party's ended.
Yeah.
I liked how at one point he asks her, "Is your top white?"
Yeah.
He's like,
I thought
take it off.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent.
Look.
I thought it was, I have a condition, doctor.
Sorry, ma'am. I have a phobia. You're gonna have to take your top off.
But it's here that Dr. Rachel says that basically the only way around this is you have to wear sunglasses everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the explanation. There's an in-universe explanation
why the tough guy action hero's got to wear shades.
Well, he has to wear shades literally the entire time. It's
Yeah.
because if he doesn't, he will go into like panic attacks.
Yeah.
Basically is what happens. Yeah, he starts freaking out.
Yeah.
So now he's wearing sunglasses the entire movie. Or most of the entire movie. There's definitely moments in this movie where he's not wearing his sunglasses and white is around, and there's other times where he is wearing his sunglasses, but then white still bothers him. So it's a little inconsistent.
So what are you doing, John Woo?
Exactly. Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Where's the script supervisor here?
So we then cut to what is essentially going to be the focal point of this movie. There's a fashion shoot going on with the debut of this new supermodel named Cinder James. I think.
Cinder James.
Yeah.
Yes. And she's this up and coming new supermodel that like is right on the cusp of being famous.
Yeah, I think she must have had some success already, but she's going to be like the face of this new line or whatever.
I don't know how
I don't know how it fucking works.
I don't know how the fashion industry works, but they keep like building up like her evil manager or whatever, who's always wearing a shiny shirt.
He's got a great look, that guy.
He's just all like she has to be at this fashion show, and like if she isn't at her fashion show, that's it. Her career is sunk. Everything leads up to this moment. It's all important, and it's just leading to a moment where she's just like walking on a stage for like less than 2 minutes, and everyone in the crowd is all like, and it's just like I don't get it.
I don't get it. I don't get the feel of like the catwalk or anything like that. That's not for me. But also throughout all this, like she's dealing with a crazed stalker that's trying to kill her.
Yes,
and it's like
the plot of this movie.
Yeah, and it's just like you don't want to, I don't know, take care of her in this scenario where there's like her life's in danger.
She's got
she's got to be at this.
She's got to get to the show. I think Dolph has kind of like a throwaway line of dialogue where he talks to the manager, and he's basically all like, "You have like a life insurance policy on her."
Yeah,
but that's not really like explored or anything. But
yeah, it's like you get paid whether she lives or dies,
whether she gets shot in the head or not. It's like you'll get paid either way. It's all like, yeah, but your career as a fashion manager will probably be tanked.
Yeah. If your clients die.
And then later on, they found out that you knew about it and did nothing. You'd never work again.
Yeah.
So this is a very confusing bit of editing. So we see Cinder get out of a limo. It's our introduction to this character.
There's the windswept with a bunch of leaves going by. That's the John Woo slow-mo dub scene.
Absolutely. The immediate scene that follows that. So we've just been introduced to Cinder. She's getting out of a vehicle and she's got sunglasses on. She doesn't have a phobia. She just wears them because she's cool.
Yeah.
The next scene, it cuts to 2 people in an apartment building. And look, I don't know who Cinder is yet. I haven't gotten that good of a look at her.
Yeah.
So when you cut to this as your next scene...
And it's another blonde lady?
It's another blonde lady. I'm under the assumption, this is who I just saw get out of the vehicle. So he cuts to an unnamed couple who are just in an apartment building. The woman is just like standing next to an open door for no real reason.
Yeah, back turned to the veranda or whatever.
And she says, "Honey, can you get me some more champagne?" He says, "Sure, baby." And he leaves.
We're in a TV movie in the 90s. And it's the middle of the day.
This is what we're doing. Yes, we've clearly been drinking champagne all morning. So he leaves. He comes back with a full bottle of champagne. The woman's standing exactly where she was. He says,
"Ramrod stiff, though.
Honey, what's wrong?" And she falls over dead. And this is where we meet our assassin, our killer.
Who I never got his name.
He is credited as a name. Rory Gaines.
Rory Gaines
is our villain for this movie, and he shot this woman, so I think she's dead, without realizing Cinder was a different person. He shoots the man through the champagne bottle. Then he spends a really long time dipping his fingers into the man's open wound, going up to a painting on the wall of a woman's face, and smearing the blood on her lips to give her like red lipstick.
Yeah.
And the movie takes a long time to show him doing this, and it comes to nothing.
Well,
What is the point of what he, other than just to prove that he's crazy?
I will correct you. It does come back.
It comes back, but it does, but like not in a meaningful way.
The reason that they do that is this guy is full of all those twisted serial killer cliches where he listens to opera. He has a butterfly in a jar.
Oh my God.
He spouts off monologues. He does weird ballet dances when he's alone. Yeah, I don't know what the term is for these types of characters.
Failed actor.
He's a failed actor.
The most dangerous kind of sociopath out there.
Actors. But yeah, it's exactly what you would do when you want to depict like that. Oh, he's a insane man of culture.
Sure, yeah.
And high society.
Yeah. He's just doing it to show that he's like cuckoo bananas, but still, we could have moved on. We didn't need like a close up on his face, like licking his lips as he's making like a red circle with his hands. So anyway, this guy sets up a sniper rifle on the roof and he tries to take a shot at Cinder, but he misses.
Because the scope is blurry as fuck.
Right.
I caught that and I was like, well, no wonder he fucking missed. The thing's all wishy-washy.
And so Cinder is scurried away by her management and her head of security.
Our old friend, Fred the Hammer Williamson.
Yeah, and he's here and he's playing like the...
Good to see him again. He hasn't aged a fucking day.
No, he looks like, well, I mean, mid-90s. He looked roughly the same as he looked in From Dusk Till Dawn. I'd wager if you looked at him now, he's aged a bit.
I mean, from Bronx Warrior and the New Barbarians.
Oh, yes, of course, yes. No, yes, he looks exactly the same as...
He's got to be a shoo-in for our Hall of Fame.
Yeah, this is what, the third time we've covered him?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he's getting there.
All right.
He's getting up there. He's in the lower rungs of the Hall of Fame, but he'll get there eventually.
Get there,
We could absolutely do an entire episode for Fred Williamson. He has a full-ass movie career. So yeah, and he was the star of movies.
Yeah.
But here he's playing Tim Hastings, who's like the head of like this security company, the bodyguard detail. I never know what to call this company. Like
security firm, whatever.
Yeah, firm. Yeah, exactly.
But even though it seems to be his company, and it is mentioned that he started this company after he left like the bureau or whatever, it seems like there's a mutiny going on. Because there's another security guy who I think is like the point man in charge guy of like the guy he appointed, and he second guesses him on everything.
Yeah,
and they always go with that guy's recommendation, which always turns out to be the wrong call.
Yeah, this character I believe is named Tragle. Yeah, he's like the rival. Security
subordinate, the rival subordinate,
exactly. And it's just like, no, we should do this. It's like you guys have a company that's about keeping people from being shot in the head. Can you get on the same fucking page?
A woman's life is in your head.
Exactly. It's like you're missing the point of why you even started this company in the first place. But Fred Williamson realizes there's only one man for the job.
It's Jack Devlin,
and it's Jack Devlin, and so he calls him, and they have a meeting. They say like, hey, do you want to grab lunch? And it's my favorite cut in the movie because Fred Williamson says, how about we grab lunch? And then it cuts to the two of them walking through the park, and Fred Williamson has a hot dog in one hand and a cigar in the other. And that's
the way he lived.
That's the working man's lunch. And this entire exposition scene, I kept waiting for Fred Williamson to put one or the other in his mouth, and guess what? He does neither.
Yeah.
He's just holding them both the entire time.
He's not paying attention, so he bites the cigar and tries smoking the hot dog.
But Jack Devlin says, not this time, old friend.
We didn't mention.
We missed over two very important things. Yes.
All right. Do you think Jack Devlin's rich? Because he has a manservant.
He has a full-on manservant. I just want to point out that Wikipedia describes this character roommate and sidekick. This character of Thomas, who is Jack Devlin's roommate and sidekick. No. This is a full-on capital M manservant, my friend. This is like fucking.
He's Alfred.
Yeah. This is a full-on Woodhouse character. Yeah. This is the character of Thomas, who is played by the great Saul Rubinek, who's a fantastic Canadian character actor. You've seen him in Frasier, probably.
I'm most familiar with him as Daphne's fiance.
Yes.
And because of that, I've always hated this guy. Which is unfair to him because he's in a bunch of shit and he's usually very good and everything.
And he's playing a very likable character here. Yeah.
But because he got in the way between Niles and Daphne, I was like, ooh, boo.
Boo earns to this man, yeah. Yeah, but he's playing Thomas, who is the live-in servant of Jack Devlin.
Yeah.
And he inexplicably has an eye patch, because why not? Because you gotta...
Which will be absolutely the sort of thing that you would put in as like sort of a visual hook for a recurring character in like a daytime action.
Thomas would get like his own like standalone episode one time, and they'd cast like a younger actor to play him, and it would be like the story of how he lost his eye. Yeah, that would be a sweeps week episode.
They bring up every once in a while that he has some like underworld connections.
Yeah, he's like the guy who knows people.
Yeah,
he knows things.
So like,
which is why he's a good sidekick to Jack Devlin.
So it's like, I would love to know more about this guy, but we don't have time. We got to get to the more important element of this. Remember that little girl? Her parents died. The Russians finally get their man.
Well, here's the thing: is like this guy shows up. I guess like this
doorman, whatever.
Well, whoever shepherds orphaned children to like their new homes. I don't know. Like this government guy shows up with Casey, and he just says that her parents died in an accident, and that's all. That's all they ever go to. Bullshit. Of course, this was repercussions from the fucking Russian gangster who's still out there.
Yeah,
they're still like, he wasn't one of like the hundreds of goons that Jack Devlin gunned down. He's still out for revenge. He still wants that casino. Yeah. So as soon as this is introduced, you know for a fact this was meant to be like a later episode of the TV. This was meant to be like a running plot thing.
Investigation, yeah.
Yeah, trying to find out who killed Casey's parents. Yeah, this would have been like a thing. Because bullshit, they just didn't. After that intro, they didn't just die in a car accident off screen.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's some other things going on here, but there's not enough time to get into it here.
Yeah, basically, now he is her surrogate father.
Yes.
And
Uncle Jack,
which is... That's your premise of a TV show. You know,
absolutely. It's not the premise of this movie.
No.
It's just a thing that happens. And we'll get to it later.
This, like, bodyguard for hire also has to balance that with raising
single fatherhood.
Fatherhood, yeah.
Exactly. And oh boy, how's he gonna mess this up? And like, the thing is like, we occasionally cut back to Jack's apartment. And, like, he's on the case, like, trying to stop, like, this psychopath or whatever, and he keeps leaving Casey with Thomas, and Thomas and her going off and having, like, little shopping montages off-screen that I would have loved to have seen, frankly.
Sure,
but and it's like, you think eventually we're building to a moment where, like, Casey confronts Jack, and it's all like... You know, like, I just need a father right now. I just need this, right, that. For the trauma that she's gone through, for the death she has seen, she's a fairly well-adjusted little girl. Yeah. Nothing seems to bother her that much. Like, there's like one moment, like, right after she's like left with Jack, where he's all like, "Hey, do you like my house?
What do you think of my place?"
It's okay.
Okay.
It sucks.
And then she starts crying. Yeah. And that's like the only time she's sad about her murdered parents throughout the entire run of the show.
I like that one moment where Thomas like gives Dolph Lundgren a look like, you know, this is where you actually, you know, to comfort a grieving child, you know, give her a hug.
Give her a hug. You got to do something. And I believe his response is like, "Hey, I got satellite TV." And Thomas is just all like,
"Motherfucker,
no,
yeah,
no." But that's plot B.
Yeah.
Plot A is Jack is on the case. He turns it down,
because he can't devote time to it. He's got a child to
exactly.
And then when then Freddie Williams says, "All right, well, take care, Jack." And as he's walking away, I was like, "Oh fuck,
yeah,
fuck, no, not the hammer,
not the hammer." But it doesn't play out that way. No. Spoiler alert: Fred Williamson does survive this movie, so he can show up as a special guest star. I don't think he would have been a regular, on the show. But I definitely think they would have
for this role.
Not for this role, but they definitely would have brought him back a couple of times. He would have been like a reoccurring guest star, I would say. Yeah.
So in another instance where Cinder has to be escorted to a limousine, they say they got the building locked down. The assassin manages to sneak through with a bunch of photographers. Being the perceptive head security guy that the Hammer is, he takes a bullet for Cinder, and so they rush.
Because that's the job.
That's the job. And so they take him to a hospital. Jack's there, and he says, like, I let you down. I'll you know what? Seeing my friend lying in the hospital bed, I'm on the case. I'll I'll do this for you, buddy.
And there's the classic grieving wife there too. It's all like, what are you doing here, Jack? He got shot because of you.
Yeah.
And that old bullshit. So Rory, the killer, that's his name, right? Yeah, Rory. Rory, the killer, he gets away in the car park. I think he like steals a car or something. And
He does, and also like 3 guys on dirt bikes kind of distract the cops.
Which at first, when those guys came down, I'm all like, was that just a coincidence? No, he has like goons. He has like
Who we never find out about.
No, we don't. He has like a bunch of people that he's working with or like he employs at the very least, because there's an action scene coming up, and once again, there's
guys on dirt bikes with guns.
There's this endless parade of goons that I'm happy that they're there, but where are they coming from? Who's paying these goons?
Yeah.
Supposedly Rory. Yeah,
I guess so.
But not only is Rory able to escape from the car park, he's able to get to the hospital where Fred Williamson is pretty damn fast. And he disguises himself as a doctor, and he gets right up to the Hammer's bed, and he switches up his IV drip with like potassium chloride or
something that would kill him if the IV got in there. But because Dolph Lundgren has a fight with the insubordinate security guy, they have a tussle and it knocks over the IV conveniently enough.
This fucking guy, he's all like, I heard he was like semi-conscious, so he tries to literally force like a pen into Fred Williamson's hand, which we later find out is like
legally binding
him to transfer the entire company over to this douchebag.
Yeah.
So yeah, this guy just has absolutely no scruples, and Dolph Lundgren was just like, get the fuck out of here, man. And he kind of like half-heartedly pushes him.
And by accident manages to save his life.
Manages to save Fred Williamson's life. Yeah, just like
potassium. Hey, that would have killed him. So he runs after the assassin, but because it's a hospital and because there's a lot of doctors around, he sees a lot of white coats. And
but only just now has this happened to him. He's been in the hospital for like maybe like almost an hour waiting to get like Dolph Lundgren. The white coats didn't bother him before, and he still has the sunglasses on, so I don't know where this is coming from.
Maybe it's if his adrenaline spikes. I don't fucking know.
There's like a bunch of things going on. Yeah, he is traumatized.
So he goes in and he goes and inspects where where Rory was with the sniper gun in that couple that he murders apartment, and just by pure instinct he knows to go up to the painting and check those lips, and sure enough, there's blood on there. And I'm just like, how would you know to do that? And wouldn't that blood be fucking dry by now?
And what purpose does it serve?
Yeah.
This was
what does this teach you about
this was an unrelated murder. You already know that he murdered these 2 guys because you're in their apartment currently right now. You're working with the police. There's all it does is reinforce the idea that this guy's a real sick puppy. He's a real piece of work.
I know so much about this guy now.
He murdered 2 people and he ruined a painting. So he's back with Cinder in her apartment, and this is where we learn she has a bit of a drug problem.
Yeah, so she's taken a lot of pills, like a lot of Percocet or something.
Is this where she tries to go over the side of the balcony?
Yeah, he saves her from that, and he says, "Oh, well, how many drugs did you take? And like, can you walk it off?" She says no, and never even like an instance of like, we gotta get this out of your system or anything.
We gotta dance these drugs right out of your system.
And so
there's only one way to detox a woman of this height and body weight, and that's salsa, baby!
They salsa dance for 1.5 minutes.
It goes on for a really long time. I wrote down, John Woo, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is a full... I have to imagine it was written into, like, the show Bible that, like, Jack Devlin must dance once per episode.
Yeah.
There's a musical number in every episode of Blackjack.
Yeah. I mean, like, what can't this guy do? and I love how, like, during all of this, like, there's the actual security team in the other room watching them on the closed circuit TV, and it's like, what the fuck is with this guy who just joined our team?
Yeah. They become the audience surrogate at this moment because they are also asking, what is happening right now? What is going on? And then we find out that the reason she is addicted to all of these drugs is that she has like back issues. She has like a slipped disc or like something wrong with like her lumbar support or whatever.
Which he fixes in the most risque for TV way possible.
Look, it would have been a perfectly normal scene of one human being helping another human being out with a back issue.
Cracking someone's back, no issue.
Absolutely. For some reason, they decided to score this with sexy saxophone music the entire time.
Gentle caressing of her back, and then like...
Hold it. 3, 2, 1...
The pain's gone.
Not for an hour or so. I'll be back by then.
Do you have to leave now?
But like it's Jack's like mission now to get Cinder off of these drugs. Like he finds like all of her hidden stashes and stuff like that.
Yep.
He intercepts like her evil manager from like dropping off all of like these pills and everything. He's like, no, we gotta get her off of these drugs. We gotta detox her off of this. The entire time I'm all like, dude, she has back problems. She needs some painkillers. She can't just go cold turkey.
Yeah.
Like, she's on the pain medication for a reason. And I know it always starts off that way. I know, like, the medical industry is all fucked up in that sense.
Sure,
where it's
yeah,
like,
you can get addicted
You
to
get
that.
you get people addicted. That's why there's all the people addicted to Oxy right now, because that's prescribed as like a thing. But still, it's like, it's not like she's just like this irresponsible like celebrity who's just like popping pills. She has a prior medical issue.
Yeah. All right. So before we continue, I just want to mention this one thing. Briefly go back to apartment where he's discussing the case with Thomas. And then out of nowhere, Casey just says,
You take on my space, I'm breaking your face.
because I guess they spent the day in Little Italy. And that is just a weird thing to hear a child say out of nowhere.
It's funny because like it's implied that Thomas took Casey out to go shopping and get her some new clothes. It looks like he went to the tourist district of New York, and Thomas feels like he's like a sophisticated gentleman or whatever. So I don't know why he took her to like
Times Square
souvenir stands or whatever. Because she has like an I Heart New York hat too and whatever. But I don't know. Maybe she picked this shit out for herself.
Maybe. Because she's grieving.
She loves it. Yeah, she's into it.
People
She thought it was hilarious.
They grieve in different ways. So Jack decides that the hotel has been compromised for some reason.
Because she called her manager to
For drugs,
to
yes.
try drugs, so now they got to go to like a
Motel in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, no. That's the second time the hotel is compromised.
Right.
Yeah.
They
keep changing locations.
The motel that he takes her to for, other security reasons, just because the assassin knows where they are in this hotel. So it's like, let's get her out of the city.
Let's
get
go
her
to a rinky-dink motel.
He won't know where she is, but when she's away, she calls up her manager, says like, I need the fix, and you got the goods for me.
And he's tapping her phone, so he got the address.
Yep.
So he calls his motorbike gang, and they all go down.
So they decide, okay, well, we got to change locations again, and then on the road, that's where there's the dirt bike fight.
And this is like the second awesome fucking action scene in this movie. This was for a TV budget. This was so impressive.
Yeah.
This was so cool. Like there's like
cars exploding and then the bikes going off ramps.
There's like this thing where like one of the guys, it's either Rory or it's one of the other guys has like a bomb strapped to his motorcycle.
Yeah, he does like a controlled slide underneath the limousine.
Jumps off the motorcycle.
Yeah.
The motorcycle continues to slide, and then just as soon as it's he timed it perfectly.
Yeah.
So that as soon as it goes underneath the limousine, it blows up.
Yeah.
It's fucking pretty cool.
It was awesome.
It's very badass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then just like for the rest of the fight, you get like the John Woo leaping through the air and dual wheeling and stuff. And there'll be cases where like, bike explodes in the air and lands on top of a burning car. There's one scene where Dolph Lundgren is riding a motorcycle backwards and firing at another guy who's basically just like a bullet sponge at this point, but he's still driving head onto him. And then I guess he shoots him enough that he just explodes. It's amazing.
There was no more guts left in that man, only bullets.
Yeah.
And that's the really cool action scene, and it's largely all downhill from there. It never hits these heights again for the rest of the. I mean, like the denouement of the movie is
true. Yeah.
It's just people pointing guns at people. I mean, like
you're right.
Face Off had the craziest fucking ending ever. Like it is two people shooting each other with guns, but like they're shooting each other with guns in the most
elaborate
in
boat chase.
in the craziest fucking way you can imagine. Yeah. So
you're right. This really is like the last great action set piece. But it sticks the landing when the assassin runs away and he gets into a milk factory. And then I just wrote milk fight.
And for the second time in this movie, a character is covered in milk.
Yes.
Something that I was not expecting from this movie. But it's a big problem because it's Jack being covered in milk, and it's white milk everywhere. Was this a refrigerated building?
I hope so.
It was just a lot of like loose milk just sitting out in this open room.
They're shooting all these pipes and tanks, and like it's just like spraying out like a fire hose all this milk onto the floor, and I'm just looking at this and I'm like, this would be gross as fuck. You know, you'd be so smelly and sticky.
Oh yeah,
afterwards.
instantly smelly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, Jack Devlin is just covered in the white stuff, and he's free. He's rolling around.
It's
in
his
it.
kryptonite, man.
It is.
And the assassin clues in on this pretty. Like he puts two and two together.
It's the white.
It's the white. Oh yeah, we finally get to hear him speak.
Yeah.
In that weird Australian, but like from the south.
I was thinking it's more of like he's like a southern dandy.
He's a Cajun actor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, my dear Cinder, soon we will be together. Yeah, this guy is crazy. He is over the top. He is fucking giving it. It's a great villain performance.
It is, and like
cite the actor.
And there's so much weird shit that goes on there. Like I was saying before, he hits all those like, actor sociopath cliches that like whenever he is on screen and he's doing something. Yeah, he's got my attention.
Absolutely. Philip McKenzie is this actor's name. But yeah, so he gets the best of Jack Devlin. He doesn't kill him. What happens? How does he get away?
The other guys show up.
The other guys show up.
The other security guys.
Yeah, so he gets away, and poor Jack is rolling around in milk, and he's very embarrassed.
Yep.
He didn't like it.
And that's where we kind of peel back their relation. Oh, sorry, go on.
There is a very funny moment where, like, Rory has a gun on him or whatever. He says, like, it's white. White is the thing that's is your weakness. You don't like the color white. And Dolph Lundgren just says, no, I'm lactose intolerant. Good line.
That's pretty good.
That's a good line.
Yeah, still in the face of danger. He's quick with a joke.
Yeah.
So now that Jack is back with Cinder, we kind of peel back a little bit on the backstory. The assassin, Rory, is actually her ex-husband, and we find out that he's a failed actor. And Cinder did not actually want to get into modeling. Her identical twin sister, I assume, was the one that wanted to get into modeling, but she died in that car accident that fucked up her back. So now, out of like some weird penance, she's gone into modeling.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
what we know.
And Rory just like they stopped being married because he was a crazy person or something happened. He just became obsessive or whatever. Mm. Was there like a thing where like he was also into the sister? I don't know. I don't remember. They explain all this. It's not terribly interesting.
Nope.
But that happens.
Anyways, now that there's been multiple attempts on her life, the show must go on at like the big fashion debut.
Yes.
And because Dolph Lundgren's dropped the ball, I guess he's off the security detail.
Well, no, it's because we mentioned the guy, the other security guy ended up getting Fred Williamson's comatose hand to make an X on a piece of paper. So now he owns the company. Mm-hmm. He's telling evil shiny shirt manager, Jack Devlin's out. This will go off without a hitch. And they set up this big fashion show where the main woman has an assassin out for her blood. There's someone who has very pointedly made multiple attempts on her life. We know that's a big deal. We've hired all these security people for it, and of course, all of the other models in the show have masks on because that doesn't. You didn't want to rethink the concept maybe to make this like a little less obvious for what's going to happen.
The night before the fashion show, I guess Cinder is about to have an overdose on her next
right.
fix.
I was going to say, because we forgot to... this was earlier. This was before all of the motel stuff happened, because, she has, like, an over... No, she's detoxing is what happened.
Yeah.
She's not doing so good. The reason we forgot to mention this is because it adds nothing to the fucking plot.
Yeah.
It's just a TV episode detour, filling time to let's check in with our other characters.
Yeah.
So Jack takes her back to his apartment, and he calls his psychiatrist to come and look after this woman who is
not like a medical doctor.
Not the same kind of doctor.
She's the soft science kind of
Absolutely.
doctor, right?
But it leads to this moment where like the three women usher the two men out of the room, and it's like
girl power.
Absolutely. It's all like, well, one, I'm not that kind of doctor, but sure, I'll look after this woman who is detoxing
because you clearly don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Leave me the little girl. Yeah. That's what makes sense here. She'll be like my my number two in this situation. And the bulk of what this psychiatrist does to help this woman out is say, okay, let's get her clothes off and get her back into bed. That seems to be all she does. It's all like, nah, Jack, you need to take her shoes off before she gets into bed, buddy. Come on.
Yeah.
You need a woman to explain this to her. And it's just, this psychiatrist character goes nowhere. She's only included to set up the fact that she will be in
the
series
as like a potential love interest.
Yeah.
There's the scene right the next morning, I believe. Like he says, like, you gotta help me, Doc. You gotta help me. Every time I see the color white, I lose it. And she's like, well, it's subconscious. You gotta like do some soul searching for why you're doing this. But I guess like her main piece of advice is just do your best.
What this is about is understanding that you can't do it all. All you can do when the moment comes is your best.
Do your best and never take those sunglasses off. That's the best I got for
Thanks,
you.
Doc.
It's just like this. Yeah, this psychiatrist character only exists to do things.
Not even like some poignant piece of something that you would learn from psychology school, or any words of encouragement that like they could share as a bonding moment between them. Just do your best.
Yeah, and he never treats
like a pep talk.
He never treats her the way anyone would treat their psychiatrist. Like there's like a moment where she calls him and says, hey, you're like half an hour late for a session. He says, oh, sorry, I'm in the middle of the plot of this movie, Blackjack. I'll call you. And then as he gets off the phone, he says to Saul Rubinek, he says, send her like 12 dozen orchids. I'm like, she's a professional, dude. She's gonna bill you no matter what.
Yeah.
You missed a session, she's still gonna charge you for the hour.
That's $300 out of your
exactly.
Pocket,
so and like also a little bit of professionalism, please. Don't. She's a medical professional who's trying to help you with your psychosomatic trauma or whatever. Don't romance her on top of that. And then later on, when like Daniel, is his name Daniel, right? What's his name? William? Thomas.
Who are you talking about?
Thomas, the fucking pirate. Thomas the pirate.
Right.
Thomas the pirate's on a mission with Jack, and they realize no one's watching our adopted daughter, so they call the psychiatrist
to pick her up from school.
That's not her job, Jack.
Really?
She's a professional lady. She has other clients, probably.
Yeah, I'm working right now. I'm with a client. You would need me to go in the middle of the day
He
to
like
pick
calls
up
her up. It's like, Rachel,
this little brat I don't know.
Rachel, you doing anything right now? Yeah, I have a full day. I'm a psychiatrist.
And the reason they're not, looking after this little girl themselves is they decide to follow up on this lead where Rory uses disintegrating bullets, which I don't know if is a thing.
It's a thing in this universe. It's a thing, yeah.
So they go up to this arms dealer, and their plan is to have Thomas pose as an Italian mob boss.
I was into this. He puts on this nicely tailored suit. He's got his little chapeau on. He's still got and he starts doing accent work. I'm all like, yes. This is the breakout character. He would have 3 Emmys at this point if it went to series.
Absolutely. But it's like...
Canadian Emmys.
Yeah, they got a couple of... not Junos, right?
Genies?
Sure.
That's what they're called,
yeah,
right?
They'll get 3 wishes. But I'm just like, why even do this? Dolph Lundgren is like 6'8" and like the
He's
most
a tank of a man, yeah.
Why do you need to have this diminutive mafia boss to sort of back up this story that we're gangsters? Just say whoever the fuck you are, Dolph Lundgren. Who's going to argue against you?
And then
Thomas,
so
unnecessary.
And then Thomas is like on the team, and he's like part of tracking down this violent sociopath. And I'm just all like, is this normally your job? I thought normally your job was to like
cook and clean,
make his dinner. Yeah, exactly.
But no, he decides to endanger this man when they go to the lair
of Rory,
who I'm just going to call the actor.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And like, does that not look like a villain set for the Adam West Batman?
Well, I don't know if it always looked this way or if like he added these element after his fight in the milk room. But he's hung white curtains everywhere, so of course
curtains everywhere, lounge chairs, fake Roman columns, and everything.
Yeah, yeah, he's hiding
hanging picture frames with no picture in it.
He's hiding. Yeah,
every cliche you could think of.
This is where the local community theater company stores all of their sets and props on the off season when they're not doing productions. And he's somehow broken into this. And it is literally an Adam West Batman villain lair, Jameson. That's exactly what it is. But Rory manages to get the drop on both of them, despite the fact that one of them is Dolph Lundgren.
Well, it's because he dropped a white curtain.
It's because of the white. Absolutely.
It was a whiteout.
Multiple times in my notes, Jameson, I literally just wrote, white! It was so, every time it happened, it was so funny.
It's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, so Dolph Lundgren wakes up and he's tied to a chair.
Yeah, and Rory has a bunch of mannequins made out of hay tied to a chair.
He's
like,
made 5 scarecrows and he's tied them to chairs. And
which one's Thomas?
He's secretly hidden Thomas inside of one of these straw men.
Yeah.
And he's just like, which one is it, Dolph Lundgren? It's not like he's presenting like a game to Jack Devlin. It's all like, pick which one and I'll let him go. He's just going one by one and shooting the straw man.
Yeah.
And it's like, which one is your friend inside? And it's like, I don't know, maybe it's the one that has the proportions of a human body?
The one that's shaking and making noise. Yeah.
But he stops Rory before he shoots Thomas.
He uses his trademark razor sharp playing cards
That's
to cut
right.
the ropes, and
that's why we introduced that earlier.
he tosses it again at Rory, misses, but it cuts his cheek. And
Rory goes, my beautiful.
Now I'll never be an actor again.
I'm like, bro, you're wanted for multiple murders.
Yeah.
You're not going to be an actor, period.
And the casting director sent a frown on that.
Yeah.
And Dolph Lundgren again goes after him, but drops another white curtain, so he's debilitated again. At the fashion show, it's Syndra's big debut, and she's doing her catwalk thing. And then what I can't imagine was something they ever rehearsed, but it just kind of happens and people go with it. Rory walks up behind her in like a Phantom of the Opera mask or whatever, and a cape, and she's not suspicious, and she's not freaking
She
out.
barely notices this guy who's just like hovering close to her.
Yeah, and sure, the audience will be none the wiser, but everybody running the show should know, like, this isn't part of the act.
Do you remember the primary debates back in 2016 between Hillary and Trump whenever Hillary was at the podium and she was
and
like...
Trump was like sort of looming behind
he
her?
would just kind of like amble into frame. Like he always had to be on camera even if he wasn't talking. That's what this reminded me of. It's just like, I'm just going to get close to her. I'm not going to touch her.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be near her. I'm going to be hovering around her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Jack is up in the rafters with a sniper rifle, even though he's not allowed to be in there. Because the guy fired him or whatever.
Yeah.
He found a way in, and he's just casually up in these rafters with a sniper rifle, just so he can get a vantage point.
Yeah.
And he sees Rory with the mask. He knows it's him because his fresh wound is bleeding, but for some reason he doesn't take him out, even though he has a perfect headshot.
He's like, where's this going, I wonder?
He waits long enough for Rory to fire his gun,
Yeah.
and then he immediately points at where Jack is and said, there he is!
There's the shooter.
And he's able to get away with Cinder,
Yeah.
because everyone's an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
Including Jack in this moment.
Yeah, you gotta shoot your shot.
You gotta shoot your shot!
So, Dolph Lundgren explains himself to the security detail, and then he goes back to the actor's lair.
Yeah, he doesn't even change his fucking location.
Nope.
No wonder he fucking found you immediately, Rory. You went back to the same place.
Yep.
He's like, well, I got all my stuff here, you know.
Yeah.
I set up all these pillars earlier.
So before Rory does the deed and murders his wife, he has one last dance with her, and he's wearing a white suit. A white tuxedo.
Because he's no dummy. He knows Jack is on his way.
And I was like, yes, final fight. And he's going to be wearing a white suit for this. This
Right.
is perfect action movie schlock. I love it. And so they have like this ballroom dance. And then Cinder just unloads on him. One of the things she says is, you can't act because you aren't human. And I'm thinking like, there's plenty of animals that are in show business. Anyways.
That was the thought train you went down while you were watching the movie.
That's
true. That's some
it
good.
was late.
That's some good. Anatomy of a Fall has a dog in it that like gives like literally the best performance I've ever seen a dog give in my entire life. I'm watching there. I'm just like, how the fuck did they get that dog to do that? That's really good.
Whoa.
Give that dog the Oscar. Yeah. So then Jack shows up. We haven't talked really about like the traumatic moment from his childhood where like gangsters killed his dad because his dad was one of the first card sharks in Vegas is what the backstory we find out.
Sure.
And they had like this like little like
They had a signal where if ever the pit bosses were getting wise to him, he would flick his lighter twice, and that would be Dolph Lundgren's signal to get the car.
well, but this is the thing is that he's a little kid. He's already in the car. So I don't know, what does he mean, get the car ready? He already has the car ready. I was very confused by how this little grift of theirs was supposed to work.
Maybe he was at the table? And then he went to go get the car.
Yeah, but in the flashback, that's not the situation that they got going on. Mm-hmm. There's just a little boy parked in front of a casino
in a white Cadillac.
In a white caddy.
That's why it connects.
That's why it connects. Absolutely. But he's just parked in front of this casino while his dad goes in to play blackjack and game the system, and he's at a vantage point where little Dolph Lundgren, I guess, can see him clearly hold up his Zippo lighter and flash it 2 times. 1, no way can he see what's going on from the vantage he's at. 2, after 2 minutes, someone's going to come and ask him to move. And also, you're a child. What are you doing here?
I mean, it was the 70s. I've heard my folks tell some stories.
Vegas was different back then. Yeah, absolutely.
So in this moment, Dolph Lundgren magically gets over his phobia of the color white, takes off his sunglasses.
Because he believes in himself.
Yeah, and he takes off the glasses, and Rory immediately starts beating the shit out of him. And I was like, what? Maybe put the shades back on, man. Like, this is not helping you the way you think it would. But then he brings out his dad's lighter and he puts it up close to his face, which tints everything in his view red, and then he can see through the white sheets hanging on the walls. And I'm just thinking,
should have set my eyes on fire earlier. This would have solved so many things.
Well, I'm just like, you should be even more blinded by a flame close to your eye. What? You can't see better when fire's in your goddamn face.
No, it's the good type of blindness.
Okay,
this is what it is. Yeah.
It heightens the senses.
And then I honestly, I literally watched this movie yesterday, and then later on in the day, I was trying to remember how Rory meets his end, and I can't fucking remember.
I think Dolph Lundgren shoots him from across the room.
From across, it's not that interesting.
No,
he kills the bad guy, and the day is saved.
Yep.
Yeah. And then
Cinder's safe.
Cinder is safe, and they have a little smooch, but she's not going to be. Yeah. She's not a reoccurring character.
Nope, this was her case, and
exactly,
she will never appear
over
in the series again.
And
maybe a one-off episode. He goes back to the hospital, and Fred Williamson is fine. And he says, like, hey, if you ever need any more work, or if you ever are in some trouble, give me a call. And I'm just like, well, that's when I'll see you every week for a new case of Blackjack.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he sneaks him a little cigar, and his wife's all like, I saw that, Fred Williams. And he's like, no, honey, I don't know what you mean.
That was cute. That was very cute.
And then he drives off with Thomas, and Thomas starts giving him shit because he didn't pick up school supplies for his daughter that he keeps forgetting that he has now. And then the credits roll.
Come to think of it, yeah, the little girl just disappears.
Yeah, because she's not important to the story.
After
her B-plot ended, so...
Yeah, after Cinder goes home from being detoxed, yeah, the little girl, I guess they never picked her up from school.
Well, they got Dr. Rachel to pick her up, and I guess presumably
I don't know.
Presumably she's still at her apartment.
I don't
Dolph
know.
Lundgren just never drove around to. And what's Thomas doing at this moment? Surely. If Jack is too busy to do any like child rearing, surely Thomas has time on his plate.
She should have been in the back seat of the car with the two guys going back home or something. Just give her a cap to the scene. But yeah, that's Blackjack.
That's Blackjack. His name is Jack, and he doesn't like black.
All right.
No, he likes black. That's the thing. He only likes black. Yeah, he's actually kind of on the fence about black. It's just black kind of helps with his aversion to white.
Sure.
Now, here's the question. If this had got picked up for a series, and this became a season of television, or possibly multiple seasons of television, do you think he would still have the phobia? Or is the implication that he's cured of his phobia by the end of this thing? Because otherwise, I got the impression that was why the movie was called Blackjack. Because he doesn't like...
He has an aversion to white.
Exactly.
You know, if that were to carry throughout the season, well, now you got a way to incapacitate the Superman, right?
Yeah,
But the fact that it is conveniently dropped in essentially the pilot of this, what a weird thing to have and then just completely discard.
It's weird that he seemingly gets over it by the end of this movie.
That should be a thing that carries on and like crops up in every episode.
Because otherwise, what's the deal with him? Like that's like curing House of his limp in like the first episode
Yeah.
of the thing. No, that was his thing. That was the thing that made him grumpy or whatever.
Yeah, there's got to be an episode where he's got to solve an assassination plot at a ski resort or something, you know, like that.
He goes to the Louvre and he's all these statues are everywhere. Oh no!
He chases down a crook into like an ice cream factory.
This was the other.
No, vanilla.
This was the other thing too, is that I think they bring this up, and obviously, you know, this takes place during the summer or whatever. But like, what happens to Blackjack when it's fucking snowing outside? He's housebound. He can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Canada was probably the worst place that you could have filmed this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there anything we didn't mention? I wrote down in this final fight when he is trying to get the confidence to like kill the bad guy and get over his like white phobia or whatever, he starts listing all of like the nice white things. So it's just Dolph Lundgren holding a gun going, marshmallows.
Big puffy cloud.
Marshmallows. Big fluffy clouds. Bunny rabbits. Sugar.
And it's
Like
and
that's your dry cool action one-liner.
that's how he's building himself up. He's building his confidence up by going marshmallows.
Sugar, motherfucker. All right, I had two things I wanted to mention. I brought up before a subtitle or a closed caption thing.
Okay.
So on YouTube, whenever some diegetic music is played, it'll say foreign music.
Oh, I see.
But the way that there were some weird cropping issues with this upload where it would just say foreign. And whenever that was on screen, whenever Dolph Lundgren was on screen, I was like, oh, come on, guys. That's not cool.
He's been speaking English for a very long time.
I know,
all
right? But the other thing I wanted to bring up, did you happen to recognize the actor who played Casey's father?
Oh, no, he was in it so briefly. Is he in a movie that we've covered before?
Well, as a fellow Canadian cast, shame on you.
Oh, dear.
He played Ranger Gord on the Red Green Show.
Oh, all right.
One of my favorite recurring characters.
Okay.
Just this lonely forest ranger that's like holed up in like a watchtower, and every time Red Green goes in to check on him, he's like, please don't leave.
I know the character you're talking about.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Red Green in decades now, and I would not be able to recognize anyone other than the two.
Red Green
and Harold, yeah. And even then, I'm sure Harold doesn't really look like that in real life. I'm almost certain Red Green just looks like
the
that.
same.
Yeah. Is his name Red Green?
No, it's like Steve Smith.
Oh, that's right. I did know that.
But
for everyone listening outside of Canada, Red Green was a television show.
National treasure. Always a delight watching
He
it.
loved duct tape.
He loved duct tape. He was a handyman.
Duct tape was
weapon.
the answer to all of life's problems. Duct tape, yeah. Blackjack, Jameson. Did this movie have a certain something, or was it just a whole lot of nothing?
I think it had a certain something.
It definitely had a certain something.
It absolutely had the full force of John Woo's action directing behind it for all those big action set pieces. As, you know, fucking cliche as Rory was as a villain. God, I couldn't take my eyes off
He was
the
fun.
bizarre
He was such a
behavior
great
he was
performance,
doing.
yeah.
I mean, it certainly dips a little bit when it comes to fleshing out the characters, and this movie absolutely did not need to be as long as it was.
No,
but
it didn't need to be like an hour and 52 minutes at all. It feels like a lot of the extraneous stuff was the world building and like the fleshing out these characters who are going to be a bigger deal in the series, but as of this movie, as of the plot of this movie,
you could have trimmed it a little.
You could have cut all of the psychiatrist out.
Yeah.
And then the movie probably would have been an hour and a half.
Good point. Absolutely.
But like, no, we got to see that character because she's going to be important later.
Yeah.
But then later never came. And now she's just like this.
We'll never know what happened.
This weird
if they ever got together, Dr. Stein and Blackjack.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I definitely recommend watching this. It's not good. It's very stupid. There's lots of continuity errors. I forgot to mention in like the motorcycle action scene, there's one of the limos, the windshield gets shot out.
Yeah.
And then, like, I swear to God, later on, it's back.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the same windshield gets shot out like twice. I either saw that wrong, and like the first limo's windshield got shot out first,
or is a different one.
But there's definitely like a moment where like the windshield should be gone, and then glass shattered. And I'm all like, I'm almost certain there wasn't glass there, but you know.
But for the most part, it's just cheesy late 90s goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a good reminder that, Dolph Lundgren, he's got a ton of movies. Maybe I should watch some of them one of these days. Because you know what? He's a very likable screen presence in terms of like these action stars that came out of the 90s. It does feel like there are like tiers of them, Like Arnold, Sly, Bruce, they're on tier A, they're on the first tier, and then just below them, you got your Lundgrens, you got your Van Dams.
Yeah.
I guess you can throw Seagal in there. 90s Seagal is B tier. Nowadays
he's like D.
Now he's like G tier.
Yeah.
He's all the way down there, but
yeah, Dolph Lundgren has always just been not one of the higher echelon greats, but a respectable silver medal.
Yeah, who's also a decent actor who doesn't often get the opportunity to act. I mean, certainly this movie isn't giving him the opportunity.
No. And I would have to say, I think his strengths would fall with he's got to like have a kid co-star or something. He seems to delight in that,
Which is why he made Kindergarten Cop 2.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that was Blackjack, directed by John Woo. If you like this episode,
like what?
This is certainly one of the most forgotten John Woo movies ever made, and now you know the rest of the story. And that was Blackjack. If you like this episode, please check out the rest of our episodes. You can listen to them. They're Nothing Movies. And if you go back even further than that, they're The Fuck Is This? And they're available on Spotify. And if you want to listen to them, but you want a more visual element to it, like you want to see the posters for all of those Dolph Lundgren movies that I mentioned earlier that Jameson absolutely will have to make now, you can check us out on YouTube, where Jameson includes visual images for all of our episodes. We'd like to thank Eddie Lamb for his fantastic theme music. You can follow us on all of the social medias. I'm Kaz Lescard.
I'm Jameson Rafter, and if he dies, he dies.
Do you think Dolph Lundgren, whenever he makes spaghetti and then it turns out that the pot he's using is too small, he looks at the pasta and he says, "I must break you"?
Yeah, probably all the time.
Great. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.